As a man exits his house, he barely notices the CCTV camera relentlessly tracking his every move. With an air of nonchalance, he strolls down the lane, settles into his car and drives away. But this man is far from ordinary. He stands on the brink of being sentenced for orchestrating an organised crime group responsible for importing millions of pounds worth of narcotics into the UK. Eluding capture, he remains on the run for the next 5 years, earning the title of the UK's most wanted criminal. This is the tale of Richard Wakeling, the one-legged crime boss whose evasion of law enforcement became a nationwide pursuit. Join us as we dig into this captivating saga, set against the backdrop of the Channel Tunnel, a gateway for narcotics entering and exiting the UK, and a glimpse into the climax of one of the UK's largest narcotic seizures to date. How did the Border Force seizure lead to the discovery of an OCG? When the Border Force officers stopped a truck aboard the Channel Tunnel train, they had no idea what drastic episode was about to unfold before them. The truck contained plastic drums. Now, it doesn't feel out of the ordinary, right? It would have been perfectly normal had the plastic drums not been carrying liquefied amphetamine. What started off as a routine checkup on April the 9th, 2016, turned out to be a jackpot in terms of narcotic seizures. This bust involved a string of £8 million worth of amphetamines. The border officials caught the driver in the act on their X-ray system. Lorry driver Leslie Muffet was attempting to board a train through the Channel Tunnel. He was transporting furniture from Italy, but had a stop in Ternat, Belgium. Again, a harmless transportation journey, but one with a minor yet significant detail. He'd stopped there to collect narcotics. He was directed by fellow lorry driver Stuart Davidson to stop there to pick up the consignment. Further inquiry revealed that one Richard Wakeling coordinated the haul. These findings came through the phone evidence during the investigation, which led to the discovery of Wakeling's organised crime group. How were all the discoveries made? Phone data. Strange how all the criminals think they're too clever to be caught and then end up ensnared on an account of something as mundane as their phones. An inquiry opened up in the NCA after the narcotics seizure. The investigators further discovered that the entire importation was orchestrated by Wakeling. He was in touch with suppliers in the Netherlands and coordinated with 2 other criminals in the UK to arrange the illicit consignment. The officers believed the crime group had orchestrated at least 6 other importations before the 2016 bust. Who was Richard Wakeling and the other gang members? Richard Wakeling, the leader of the entire operation. Wakeling coordinated with suppliers from Belgium and Netherlands to conduct illicit trade. He used his transport business as a cover and an excuse to send his truck abroad to collect narcotics. According to the NCA, he had links to Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Canada, Spain and Thailand. He received 11 years for conspiring to import drugs. The media dubs him a one-legged dealer as he has a right lower leg amputation and uses a prosthetic leg. Leslie Muffet, the lorry driver who was caught in the act while transporting the illicit consignment. He was sentenced to 6 years for conspiring to import narcotics. Stuart Davidson, the other lorry driver who guided Muffet to collect the haul. He was sentenced to 8 years for conspiring to import narcotics. Darren Keane, he was identified as a member of the gang. Keane was jailed for 9 years for conspiring to import narcotics. How did Wakeling become most wanted? Now that the Border Force had caught the driver red-handed and all the members were identified subsequently, what was in store for the gang? Fast forward to January 2018. A trial has just begun to convict the gang of their charges. The members are feeling the noose tightening around their necks, but they have been caught red-handed. There's nothing much they can do now. That's what most of them would be thinking at that time, but not Wakeling. He thought he had another trick up his sleeve. Ahead of the 12-week trial at Chelmsford Crown Court, the man fled to Belfast. However, this couldn't stop the court from slapping an 11-year sentence on him in his absence. Notably, the authorities suspected he had fled to Thailand, where he had strong family links. The authorities proved to be right, as he was found there in the end, but we'll come back to that story in a few minutes. Wakeling had a prosthetic leg and needed regular medical treatment. He left his home on January the 5th and drove off in a white Audi Q3. You can see the car in the footage coming up next. His car was spotted in Iver, so he took the bus from Heathrow to Glasgow. The next day he took a ferry from Stranraer to Belfast. A week later, Wakeling's car was driven back to his home in Essex. While his whereabouts in Belfast were verified, where he went from there was subject to speculation. He seemed to have vanished into thin air at the time. Meanwhile, the NCA officers were pulling out all the stops to locate and bring him to justice. In a bid to do so, the NCA issued an appeal in 2019 for help finding Wakeling while releasing the CCTV footage of him before he fled. You can see Wakeling here, leaving the building and going down to a car. He seemed to be too nonchalant for someone who's running away from the law, but that's how most criminals are. They're confident that they won't be caught. However, that's not the case. As we keep saying in our videos, the wheel of justice turns slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. And that's what happened to Richard Wakeling as well. He was sentenced in his absence, and now the authorities were desperate to see him behind bars. After the court gave the gang sentences, NCA Senior Investigating Officer Paul Green said, "These men were involved in serious conspiracy to import a large quantity of dangerous drugs. We know they had links to other organised crime gangs in Europe, and it's almost certain that this wasn't the first time they had done it. We were determined Wakeling will be returned to the UK to serve his sentence. Until we find him, he'll spend every day looking over his shoulder." But before we delve into that, let's first see how we made the most wanted list of NCA. Green commented, "Wakeling has been on the run for well over a year now and knows we're still looking for him. He should also know that we will do everything in our power to bring him back to serve his sentence. I would urge him to hand himself in. I've no doubt someone seeing this appeal will have information about his whereabouts." He also warned Wakeling's potential facilitators. Anyone helping Wakeling or actively frustrating our efforts to find him could be arrested for assisting an offender. Returning to the NCA's efforts to end this game of cat and mouse, the agency shared details of some of the crime boss. Soon, Wakeling became one of the most wanted criminals by NCA. The agency also cautioned the public not to approach him upon sighting. However, success was still a long way off. While the NCA kept on the case, good news came in 2023 when the Thai police arrested Wakeling, who was keeping a passport with a different identity. How did Richard Wakeling get arrested? How long can a person evade the law's grasp? For Richard Wakeling, it was 5 years. 5 years of being on the run and then having his house of cards come tumbling down. In February 2023, he was arrested by officers of the Royal Thai Police at a Bangkok garage. He had earlier dropped off his car at the garage for repairs. When he came to collect it, unaware how drastically his life was going to change in a few minutes, the police arrested him right away. He was keeping a fake identity document with him at the time as well. And that's how, a little unceremoniously, NCA's most wanted criminal met justice. According to the NCA, he was found in possession of a passport with another identity. Now, how did Wakeling land in the exotic beaches of Thailand? While these details have not been disclosed yet, he sure was having fun regardless. He was living in the exquisite beachside town of Hua Hin, a dream destination for expats and holidaymakers. Not too basic for a fugitive, right? While he was in custody, his extradition proceedings jump-started. Finally, he was brought into the UK in June 2023, where he was to serve an 11-year sentence and pay for his crimes. He appeared at Chelmsford Crown Court and was immediately jailed. Given the nature of the crime and how drugs were wreaking havoc on the streets, do you think 11 years suffices as the punishment? Come to think of it, his sentence was the lengthiest among this specific crime group. The others got even less years. There are two schools of thought on this subject. One maintains that the length of the sentences does not matter. In fact, the lengthier the sentence, the more chance the person will have to forge allegiances and learn new tricks to deceive the law when he's out. The other states that the lengthier sentence and strict prison terms can get a person to behave and give him a lesson. Which school of thought do you subscribe to? Do you think the nature of the punishment can contain the criminal behaviour of a person? Let us know in the comments. Now coming to Wakeling's arrest, it didn't occur serendipitously. Painstaking efforts by multiple law enforcement agencies were laid down to make it possible. The NCA pursued his foreign connections and worked with partners from all these countries to build the intelligence picture around him. David Coyle, NCA Regional Manager for Thailand, commented on the arrest. The NCA has worked relentlessly to trace Wakeling and ensure he returns to the UK to serve his prison sentence. And it was a restless effort for sure. The NCA stayed on his case throughout. According to Jacques Beer, NCA Regional Head of Investigations, Wakeling's arrest was the culmination of the NCA conducting inquiries around the world to capture him. It wasn't just the efforts of the NCA, but of other law enforcement agencies. As Jacques Beer said, "We have been supported by the public who responded to the media and Crime Watch appeals to provide intelligence, all of which has ultimately led to his capture." David Coyle also thanked other agencies who helped with the arrest. "I thank the prosecutors of the Attorney General's Office, the Royal Thai Police, and the Commissioner of the Central Investigations Bureau for their extensive work in helping us identify and arrest Wakeling." He added, "With our partners at home and abroad, we are committed to doing everything possible to find those who have fled justice in the UK." According to him, this was another example of an offender being caught because of the NCA's global reach and strong relationships with international partners. The officers assigned to this case must have slept peacefully the night after his arrest. Wouldn't you if you were the officer working on this case? However, for some reason, the NCA website doesn't show any Richard Wakeling in its record. Surprisingly, only one post on the agency's LinkedIn page shows Richard Wakeling's arrest. What's more, the link shared for the full story on the NCA website doesn't work anymore. So if you want to go over to the NCA website and check Wakeling's story, you're out of luck. And if you think this was the craziest story of a narcotic haul through the Channel Tunnel, you have another thing coming. The Channel Tunnel has remained the centre of illicit trade in Europe. How did the Channel Tunnel become Europe's narcotic bridge? When French engineer Albert Mathieu Favier proposed the idea of an undersea passage connecting Britain and France to Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802, he intended it to unite the two nations and expedite trade and travel. He had no clue that over 2 centuries later, his proposed idea, whose execution came a decade later, would become the narcotic route from Europe to the UK, connecting the underworld partaking in illicit trade. It has been the fastest growing route for narcotic trafficking. His use of the Channel Tunnel, or Channel, dates back to 1998. While this issue came to the attention of both media and authorities decades ago, it still persists. However, lately, the crackdown and seizures against narcotic hauls using the channel have grown immensely. One such operation marked the UK's largest narcotic seizure of Class A stimulants. The seizure involved confiscation of over 2 tons of Class A narcotics, with the estimated street value of over £250 million. The gang involved in the organised crime was also sent behind bars after an investigation by detectives at the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit. The crime unit discovered that a gang of 4 had been running a multi-million-pound operation of illicit trade using the Channel Tunnel between May and September 2023. How did this gang operate? It seems that in the narcotic underworld, nothing is new under the sun. Most of the gangs use similar ways to conduct their illicit operations, only with a few minor changes. The gang under question, comprising 4 men, ran the operation of coke and smack importation from Europe. They would conceal the illicit products in an empty trailer and transport it through the channel using a specially adapted mobility car pulling a trailer. At the heart of this operation was a quiet D-side farm in a relatively rural area. This farm was key to evading detection for the gang. Ironically, this farm led to the arrest of the gang members. Before we take you through the gang's operation, let's introduce the members of the gang and the roles they played. Guy Remington, the disabled driver and one of the key players in this operation. He imported the narcotics through the channel, sourcing it from different countries. He used his transport business as a cover to conduct illicit trade. Luke Hurst, he was the tenant of the farm premises. Thomas Smith. Smith was a Class A narcotic dealer based in Liverpool who distributed the product from the farm through his network of suppliers. Morgan Towner. He acted as a courier for the OCG. Towner took the consignment from the farm down to the south of England. Now coming to the gang's operations, Remington imported the narcotics, hiding them in secret compartments in a trailer. According to the Crown's prosecution service, he made 9 trips to Europe via the Channel Tunnel, carrying millions of pounds worth of coke and smack into the country. He would take the narcotics to Hurst's farm, Tierlas Goch. The farm was crucial in their illicit operation as a packing and distribution centre. It gave them cover for moving vehicles and narcotics in and out of the location while remaining undetected. It was only accessible via a single dirt track, and no one would suspect it to be an operations centre of a narcotic gang. However, it was in close proximity to the A55 dual expressway that runs alongside North Wales, providing access to Liverpool, Manchester and the UK motorway network. It was an ideal place for such an illegal clandestine operation, wasn't it? At the farm, Hurst would offload the packages. The narcotics would then be sorted into boxes and bags for onward supply and taken away for distribution throughout the UK. Towner transported the product from the farm to the south of England via a van. The van had a hidden compartment designed to hide the illicit consignment. The product would then be distributed through a network of suppliers to the whole country. Given the farm's importance, its location was kept secret even from the clients. Hurst would meet his customers at a nearby service station or on Pinfold Lane. Then he would take their cars to his property, where he would fill them with narcotics before giving their vehicles back to them, all to conceal the location of the farm. This arrangement continued till Remington's 9th and what proved to be his final narcotics run to Europe. After that, the organised crime group came crashing down, all thanks to the timely police operation. But what prompted the police to take action against the group? According to senior Crown Prosecutor Nicola Wynne Williams of CPS Mersey Cheshire's Complex Casework Unit, when Remington left the UK on the 18th of September 2023, they knew he would return in possession of Class A narcotics. She said, "The Crown Prosecution Service worked with officers from the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit as they intervened and arrested those involved at or near the farm. Others were arrested on later dates." While commenting on the nature of the operation, she said, "This was a slick operation carried out with precision and planning. It is possible that the last thing you could imagine happening on a farm in rural North Wales. But that was the key. The rural location provided privacy for the group to unload the huge quantities of smack and coke stashed in the hide in the trailer. The nearby A55 and motorway network allowed couriers to collect and be on their way to distribute the drugs for onward supply all over the country." How did these arrests actually come about? It's a secluded, serene farm tucked away in the tranquility of rural Deeside. Even if someone wanted to explore it, they would be constrained by the lack of a proper entrance. Down the dirt track, the only path leading to the farm, a man is standing by his trailer. There is a stealthy aura about him as he removes packages from the trailer. But what could he possibly be doing in that secluded area where most people do not visit? What's more, he doesn't realise that he's not alone. He's being closely watched by a group of people who are waiting for a cue to act. They seem to have got their cue as they go up to the man and handcuff him on the spot. But the man is not their only target. They would search the whole farm afterwards and find what they came for. These people are the remarkable officers of the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit who had just arrested a key member of an OCG. The police had seized the narcotics worth an estimated £64 million when they swooped on the quiet, unsuspecting farm. It was a staggering bust in magnitude and the biggest ever haul of its kind in the UK. According to the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit, Detective Chief Superintendent Ian Whitehead, these narcotics originated from South America, while some of the arrangement of this enterprise happened in Dubai. The illicit products were brought into the mainland Europe and transported through ports into the UK for distribution. He said, "With the amount of narcotics involved, this would have undoubtedly hit the streets across the whole of the UK.
We know the individuals involved were as far north as Wales, London, Merseyside, but we know the distribution network operated far across the UK. The police caught Remington in action when he was removing the product from his trailer at the farm. He was arrested right away and taken into custody. The police combed Hurst's farm thoroughly. The officers found £183,865 cash from Remington's vehicle, 505 kilograms of coke and 108 kilograms of smack, estimated to be worth between 15 and 21 million pounds wholesale. Hurst was arrested later that day in the back of a taxi in North Wales. The search operations led to further searches of a number of Remington's business premises on the same day. And these searches didn't disappoint either. Over £700,000 in cash, numerous vehicles, as well as other higher value assets were recovered as a result of these searches. A few weeks later, North West Regional Organised Crime Unit officers arrested Thomas Smith at his home address in Liverpool. Officers seized half a kilo of coke and 9,807 MDMA tablets with a street value of up to £167,000 and approximately £16,000 cash. They also recovered a notepad containing extensive records of his onward supply network. The police were acting swiftly after these recoveries. A few days later, a search warrant was carried out at Station Road, Leatherhead, which led to the arrest of Towner. Messages on the mobile phones found at the farm and on the arrest of Towner and Smith showed a high level of organisation and planning involved in the criminal operation. Given the discoveries, the gang didn't have much left but to be charged. However, they were not ready to go without a fight. Their lawyers fought tooth and nail to ensure lenient terms for them. Remington's lawyer used his paralysis and disability to get an easier prison sentence for him. Nevertheless, the case against them was strong and most of them were caught red-handed. All four pleaded guilty to the crimes as a bargain to secure relatively desirable terms of punishment. They were sentenced by the Chester Crown Court. Luke Hurst pled guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A narcotics and was jailed for 12 years. Remington pleaded guilty to import and supply of Class A narcotics and was jailed for 7 years. Thomas Smith pled guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A narcotics, possession with intent to supply a Class A controlled stimulant, and possession of Class B controlled narcotic, cannabis, and was jailed for 18 years. Morgan Towner pled guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A narcotics and was jailed for 7 years. So Smith had it pretty bad with the lengthiest sentence. The nature of the items recovered from his place contributed to the role as well as the fact that he had a full-blown supply network under his patronage. What do you think about the length of their sentences? Let us know in the comments. The group had imported between 2 and 3 tons of Class A narcotics, bearing £700 million in street value into the country over 4 months. If the police hadn't intervened timely, this huge narcotic operation would have not only continued, but grown drastically with time. Speaking after the sentencing, the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit spokesperson from the operations team said, "The offenders in this case were involved in a sophisticated criminal operation to import a significant amount of cocaine into the UK. Unfortunately for them, despite trying to evade law enforcement by using concealments in their trailer, we were watching their every move before moving in to arrest them." So, this is a classic case of authorities keeping mum about their findings. They were monitoring their every move and waited to gather as much evidence as they could before swooping in and catching them in the act. And it wasn't just the efforts of the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit. It was possible with the help of the North Wales, Cheshire and Merseyside police. The case showcases the effectiveness of strategic law enforcement tactics. By choosing to remain discreet about their findings, authorities were able to monitor the offenders' activities without raising suspicion. This approach allowed them to gather comprehensive evidence over time, ensuring that when they did move in, they could do so with confidence and a wealth of incriminating information.